Okay, so we are holding on Daf Samech Zayin Amud Bet, by where it says Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi Omer Mishum Aviv. So just to refresh a little bit, we had in the last Amud we brought a Braita. The Braita brought what seems to be three opinions regarding the following case. You have a lady who is a Bat Yisrael who's married to a Kohen, and her husband passes away, the Kohen passes away, but he leaves her with living children, and also he leaves her pregnant. So first opinion, Tanakama, which was Rabbi Yossi, he says that, well, her avadim can eat truma because she can eat truma. So avdei malu can eat truma because she can eat truma, and the ubar, the fetus, has no chelik in them, so they can eat truma. The avdei tzon barzel, they cannot eat truma because the fetus has a chelik in those avadim, and the fetus cannot feed truma, right? Yulud ma'achil, she'eno yulud, eno ma'achil. If it's not born, it can't cause its kinyan to eat truma. So that was the first opinion. The last opinion, which was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he said that it depends. If the children that are left alive, the living children, are there any boys in there? Okay, so then the boys have vaday chelik in the avadim, and the ubar doesn't change the we don't care about the ubar. Why? Because it's a miut chance. Rov chances are it's not going to be Yoresh, because either it could be a nefel or it could be a girl. So Rov chances are it's not going to have a chelik. We don't deal with the miut. So if there's any boys in the living children, then everybody eats truma. If there are no, meaning the ubar doesn't posel the avadim from eating truma, isn't posel the avadim. But if they're all girls, so then if it's a boy, if the ubar is a boy, right, the living children are all girls. If the ubar is a boy, so then he's gonna have all the avadim. And if the ubar is a girl, she's gonna have a chelik in the avadim as well. She's gonna split with the other girls. So in such a case, then the avdei tzon barzel won't eat. Okay, so we had a middle opinion. Middle opinion was Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi Omer Mishum Aviv Habat Ma'achil Haben Eno Ma'achil. The daughter is Ma'achil, the son is not Ma'achil. Ma'ishna Ben Delo Ma'achil Mishum Chelko Shel Ubar. Why is it that the Ben is not Ma'achil? Because so he says, right, that if the guy has a son, then the son is not ma'achil. If the guy has a daughter, then the daughter is ma'achil. What is he saying here? She's pregnant anyway. So it says the Gemara, Ma'ishna ben delo ma'achil mishum chelko shel ubar. You're telling me that if he has a son and he leaves her pregnant, and he passes away, the avadim that the ubar has a chelik in cannot have. They cannot eat truma. Why? Because the ubar has a chelik in them. So bat nami lo ta'achim nechol shechal koshel bar. So also, if he has a daughter, she shouldn't eat any. The avadim that he leaves over shouldn't eat any truma because of the chelik of the ubar. So Amar Abaye hacha ben chasim muatim askinan. Abaye says we're talking about a case of nechasim muatim. What's the case of nechasim muatim? That she doesn't have. The Kohen has very little, and Chachamim were mitaken that when there's very little and he's leaving a daughter with the sons are not Yoresh, the daughter is Yoresh. Ugon deika ben bahadei bat, and the case is that the Kohen leaves over a son and a daughter. So now we know that Vadai, the daughter is going to be getting, because you have nechasim muatim, and the son is not going to be left with nothing. So, manavshach, ihai demeabra benhu. If the ubar is a ben, he's a boy. So lo adif mahai dekai. He's not going to be any more than the son that's already living. And the Chachamim took away the Yerusha of the boys in such a case to make sure that the girl has what to live with. So it's going to be given to the girl, and the Ubar is not going to have a chelik in anything. And Ibati, and if the Ubar is a girl, so Amayachla, Betakanta de Rabbanan. Why would she eat with a takana derabanan? Meaning, why would she cause? Amay achla b'takana derabanan kam lo nafek la'avir ha'olam lo takinu rabanan, right? So as long as she isn't born, the chachamim don't give her from the Yerusha, even by nechasim muatim. Meaning this case, this enactment of the chachamim to give the daughter from the Yerusha, even when there's a ben, that the ben doesn't get anything, everything goes to the daughter when there's very little left over for Yerusha, so the daughter has what to live with. That's only the living daughters. So miman avshach, the ubar is not going to have a chelek in any of the avadim, and therefore, if there's a girl, the avadim could eat. Right? That's basically what we're explaining. How we're explaining Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Yossi. So says the Gemara, b'mayu kimta. Okay, so says the Gemara, b'mayu kimta bin chasim muatim. What do you said that the case is talking about nechasim muatim? Ema seifa shema imtza ubar zachar vein lebanot bimkom ben klum. In the seifa of the Mishnah, it says that we're worried that the ubar is going to be a zachar, and the girls are not going to have anything in place of the son. So if we're talking about nechasim muatim, says the Gemara, adarab nechasim muatim debanot ninhu. If we're talking about a case of nechasim muatim, then that goes to the girls. So the Gemara says seifa atan lenechasim merubim. The seifa is talking about when there is not nechasim muatim, it's nechasim merubim. Okay, so fine. The Gemara, and that'll go to the boys. So the Gemara says, okay, fine. But I have another question. Nechasim muatim debanot ninhu. If there's very, very little Yerusha that goes to the daughters, Amar Rabbi Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Yetomim shekadmu umachru b'nechasim muatim, ma shemachru machru. So you see that the boys have authority over nechasim muatim as well when there's very little left over for the Yerusha, because it says that if they sell it, their sale is a sale. So you see that they have that level of ownership over the Yerusha, and therefore they have a chelek in it, and the chelek should go to the ubar as well, and it should be posel from eating truma. So ella my bad diktani. So the Gemara says you're right. So what does it mean when it says if there's a daughter, then the avadim eat truma? So aim, it's referring to the mother. So the Gemara says yain Rabbi Yossi. So if that's the case, that's the same as the first Rabbi Yossi, that if the avadim that the mother has, she's able to eat truma. The other avadim, they're not able to eat truma. So the Gemara says kula Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi katanila. The whole thing is Rabbi Yishmael be Rabbi Yossi. Okay, new Mishnah. Right, so Sam Zaino Ubed, new Mishnah. It says the Mishnah, Ha'ubar, a fetus, an unborn child. V'hayavam, and a yavam. V'ha'erusin, and erusin, somebody who just did kiddushin to a lady, but no more. V'acheresh, or a cheresh who married somebody. Uven tesha shanim ve'yom echad, and somebody who's 9 years and 1 day. So the Gemara is going to go through what each of these cases are, but what we need to know is poslin v'lo ma'achilin. With regard to truma, each one of these cases, and the Gemara is going to explain each case, poslin v'lo ma'achilin. They're posel from eating truma, and they're not going to be ma'achil truma. They won't feed truma.
You talk about a female or male? Yeah, right, yeah.
We're talking about a male. Well, ubar is whatever it is, but the other cases, yavam and erusin and cheresh and ben tesh shanim, they're all talking about a male. Okay, so safek she'u ben tesh shanim ve'yom echad, safek she'eno, if you have a safek whether he reached 9 years or not, or safek hevi shtei sa'arot, the safek shelo hevi, all those cases, you treat him like 9 years old. You treat him like an adult. Meaning by safek also we're machmir. Nafal abayit alav, they're also going to be posel and not machil. Nafal abayit alav va'al bat achiv. So this seems to be unrelated. Let's say a person was married to his niece. Okay, he married his brother's daughter. So tragedy happened, house fell down, and both of them died. Now ve'en yadua eze met rishon. We don't know which one died first. If the husband died first, so then there's no yibum, no chalitza, because for that brother, right? Yeah, let's say you have two brothers, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven marries Shimon's daughter, okay? and Reuven and Shimon's daughter, they're both niftar. They both die. We don't know which one died first. If Reuven was the one that died first, then there's no yibum, no chalitza, because it's his daughter, right? Following Shimon is his daughter. So no yibum, no chalitza for her and for the tzara, because she's poter the tzara, like we learned in the very beginning. But if
she doesn't have another brother, that's the question.
Yeah, no other brother, right? If the lady died first, so then Reuven's other wives can do yibum, because Reuven, when he died, he was not married to the daughter of Shimon, because she already died first. So if she died first, the tzara, the other wives of Reuven, they could do yibum to Shimon. They're chayavot to yibum. So what do we do in this case? Yibum, it can't be, because maybe the Reuven died first, and you can't do yibum. And Bachalitza is still required, because maybe the wife died first, and really the tzara requires chalitza. Okay, now the Gemara is going to go through each one of these cases. So ha'ubar. We said in ubar, a fetus is posel from truma, but is not ma'achil truma. So the Gemara says, Ibat kohen li Yisrael hapasila. If it's a bat kohen to a Yisrael, meaning there's a bat kohen who married a Yisrael and then she became pregnant, so the ubar is posel her. She cannot go back to eating truma even if her husband dies. She usually would go home to eat truma, but now that she's pregnant, she does not go back and eat truma. Why? Because kinureha prat lemeuberet. The pasuk says that she goes back to eat truma in her house. Right? When you have a bat kohen who married Israel and her husband dies, she goes back to eating truma in her house. Kinureha beit aviha, like the way she was when she's a na'ara. So we see if she's pregnant, then she doesn't eat truma. Now, bat Yisrael a kohen, and if we're talking about a bat Yisrael, if the case is a bat Yisrael married a kohen, so lo ma'achila, the fetus, the baby, the unborn child doesn't allow her to eat truma. Why? Because it says yelid beito. So yilud ma'achil, sheino yilud, eno ma'achil. An unborn child cannot feed truma. Okay, hayavam. The other case was a yavam. Yavam also is posel from eating truma, but he's not ma'achil. So, ibat kohen li Yisrael, in a case of a bat kohen to Yisrael. So generally, when her husband dies, she's a bat kohen. She goes back home to her family, and she could eat truma. But over here, she has a yavam. So pasila v'shaval beit aviha prat l'shomeret yavam. The pasuk says when she returns to her father's home, then she eats truma. But over here, she's not returning fully, because she still is connected to the family, because she's connected to the yavam. Bat Yisrael lekohen, if the case is that she's a bat Yisrael who's married to a kohen, and then she falls to yibum, so bat Yisrael lekohen he lo ma'achila, the yavam doesn't feed her truma. Why? Because kinyan kaspo amar achmanava kinyan de'achivhu. The Torah says that a kohen, he feeds kinyan kaspo, which would be he feeds that truma, which would be his wife. Over here, it's not his wife. It's just it's his yavam. It's his yavama. So he doesn't feed her truma. Okay. Next case was erusin, va'erusin. So someone who's just me'ares, he's just mekadesh a lady, a kohen who's mekadesh a lady, he doesn't feed her truma. And Yisrael, who's mekadesh a kohenet, bat kohen, he posels her from truma. So the Gemara explains, bat kohen li Yisrael. In the case of a bat kohen who had kiddushin to Yisrael, pasila, he makes her pasul now to have truma. As long as she was single, she was having truma in her family's home. Now that she had kiddushin, even though she didn't get fully married, but she got kiddushin from Yisrael, so pasila is posel her. Boker tov. Why dehakanya behavaya? Because he's koneh her with kiddushin, and that causes her not to be able to eat truma anymore, because it says bat kohen ki tiyeh leish zar. Once she has a havaya, she has a kiddushin to someone who's not a kohen, she cannot eat truma anymore. Veibat Yisrael lekohenhi, and in the case of a bat Yisrael who had kiddushin with a kohen, lo ma'achila mishum deula. She doesn't eat truma because of ula. Ula says mideoraita, if a kohen is mekadesh a lady, she's allowed to have truma. But we're worried if she eats truma, she may take it home and someone else in her family who's not allowed to eat it is going to end up eating it. Therefore, she cannot have truma. So that's the case of erusin. Okay, next, we're very top of Daf Samechet Amud Aleph vehacheresh. The cheresh also he is posel. He's posel someone from eating truma, but he also doesn't have the power to cause someone to eat truma. So, ibat kohen Israel.
This heritage means somebody's death.
Yeah, it's a big machlok rishonim exactly.
Somebody's not normal. What's it?
He's somebody who cannot communicate. So assume he's deaf and he's mute, and there's no means of communication. So someone who cannot communicate in halacha, we consider it as if there's no dot.
What is it called again?
Cheresh. Second line on the top of the.
Oh, it's in Arabic, achra.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So bat kohen Israel. In the case of a bat kohen who's married to a Yisrael who's a cheresh, so he in that case pasila, he is the kohen cheresh is posel. I'm sorry, the kohen but Yisrael is posel her from eating truma. Dakanye betakanta de Rabbanan, because Rabbanan said even though midioraita he's considered someone who doesn't have dot to make kiddushin, but Chachamim they instituted some type of kiddushin for the cheresh, and therefore Chachamim said that he's koneh her, and since he's koneh her, at least midirabanan, he's posel her from eating truma. She cannot eat truma anymore. That comes with the kinyan derabanan. Ve'ibat Yisrael lekohenhi, and in the case of a bat Yisrael who is married to a cheresh kohen, a kohen cheresh married a bat Yisrael, lo ma'achil, he doesn't cause her to eat truma, even though generally a kohen's wife could eat truma, but over here you have a kohen cheresh, and his kinyan is not halachically fully a kinyan, therefore he can't feed her truma. So kinyan kaspo amar achmana v'hailav bar kinyanhu. Kinyan kaspo, the Torah says of a kohen can eat truma, and she's not kinyan kaspo of the kohen. So last case we had was this. This was a more tricky case. So ben tesha shanim v'chui. So if someone, we said in a case of someone who's 9 years old, 9 plus, he does not he'll posel someone from eating truma, but he doesn't have the power to be ma'achil, to cause somebody to be able to eat truma. So what's this case exactly? So says the Gemara like this. Kasal kada'atach b'shomeret yavam leben tesha v'yom echad. So the first assumption that we have is we're talking about a shomeret yavam. A lady fell to yibum, and the brother who she falls to yibum to is 9 years and 1 day. So that's the case. We're assuming that if she's a bat kohen, she can eat truma because she's connected to the yavam. And if she's a bat Yisrael and he's the kohen, so he can't feed her truma because he's only 9 years old. They're not married yet. So the Gemara says, lemai. What's the chidush over here? Ilim mifsal. If it's coming to teach me that, if she's a bat kohen and she fell to yibum to this yavam who's 9 plus years old, she can't eat truma. Or katan nami mifsal. Even if he's younger than 9, she wouldn't be able to eat truma. What's the chidush of saying 9 years old? Katan nami mifsal pasim. Ila chulei. If the chidush is we're talking about that she falls to a kohen yavam, right? He's the kohen, the yavam, and she's a bat Yisrael, and the chidush is that he doesn't feed her truma. So gadol nami lo ma'achil. Even if he's an adult, even if he's 20, 30 years old, he still is not ma'achil her truma because he's not married to her. He's just a yavam, and we learned before that yavam is not ma'achil because it's not kinyan kasbo. So Amar Abaye. So Abaye says the case of the 9-year-old that we say he's posel a lady from eating truma, but he's not ma'achil her truma is as follows. We're talking about that he's a 9-year-old Yavam who he did Yibum to the Yevama. The Midioraita Kanyele. Midioraita, he's actually koneh her. Once someone's 9+ years old, his bia is considered a bia in halacha, and he's koneh the Yevama. Right? We learned that before. So salkadata chamina hol midioraita kanyele biato bia emaluchil. I might think since he's 9 years old and his bia is halachically considered a bia, he's koneh the Yevama, and she could even eat truma now, because we're talking about a case where he's the kohen, she's a bat Yisrael, she fell to yibum to him, right? So when she was married to her original husband, she was allowed to eat truma. He passed away, left her with no children, she has to stop eating truma. I might think once the 9-year-old did yibum, she could eat truma again. Kamash malan asu biat ben tet shani v'yom echad k'ma'amar b'gadol. Comes to teach us that no, the bia of this 9-year-old boy, it does have a halachic bia, and there's a yibum here, but with regard to truma, it's like a ma'amar, it's like a kiddushin, meaning it's not like a full nisuin, and she cannot eat truma. So that's what Abaye wants to say is the chidush over here. So Amar le Rava says to Abaye, Iachi sefa dektani safek ben tet shanim veyom echad safek she'eno. And we said in the next line of the Mishnah that if we're not sure if he's 9 or not, maybe he's under 9, maybe he's over 9. Well, in such a case, we're machmir and we treat him as if he's 9 years old and he's going to be posel her and not ma'achil her. So if that's the case, you don't need. If the case is that the chidush is that he doesn't feed her truma when he's 9 years old and he has bia with her, so hashta vaday ben tet lo ma'achil. When the guy is for sure that he's for sure over 9 years old, he's not causing her to eat truma. Safek mebaya, you need to come tell me. Oh, and by the way, if he's a safek whether he's 9 years old, also it's the same halacha. You don't need to tell me that. Of course, he's not going to feed her truma. So Ela Amar Rava. So therefore, Rava argues with Abaye. He says, I have a different explanation. Beben tesha shanim ve'yov echad dehanach pisulim. We're talking about not a case of yibum, a case of bia pisula. Okay, so there's another way that a lady could become pasul to kehuna, or if she's already a bat kohen, she could be pasul from eating truma. How is that? By having bia with somebody who's pasul to her. So. So Elamarava ben Tishanim Yom Echad Da'anach Pisulim Katani Depasi B'Biatan, that they're posel with their bia. Having a lady having bia with one of these men could cause her to not be able to eat truma anymore, even if she's a bat kohen. So that's the case. He has to be 9 years old. Ukedetanya, like we say in the Braita, Ben Tesha Shanim V'Yom Echad Ger Amoni Umoavi Mitzri Ve'edomi. So those are the 4 nations that even after they convert, they're not allowed to come into the Kahal. They have to, right, by Mitzri and Edomi, you have 3 generations. Ammon and Moab can't come. So we're talking about one who's a Ger Ammoni or Moavi or Mitzri or Edomi or Kuti, who this opinion holds they're not real gerim, they're gerei arayot. They just converted just out of fear, and they didn't really, their conversion wasn't a good halakha conversion. They have the status of they don't have the status of bnei Yisrael, or natin, or netinim, or halal, or someone who's a halal, who's not allowed to be with a he'll be mechalel bat kohen with his bia, umamzer, or a mamzer. So any of these people that they're 9+ years old, Shabau al Kohenet Leviavi Yisraelit. They were together with a regular Bat Yisrael or a Bat Kohen or Levia. Paslua. They are posel her. Right? Which means if she's a Bat Kohen, she cannot have Truma anymore. If she's a Bat Yisrael or Levi, she cannot marry a Kohen anymore, because she had a Bia with someone who's Asur on her. Right? As once she has a bia with someone who's Asur on her, that's it. She can't have Truma anymore if she's a Bat Kohen, and she can't even marry a Kohen if she's not a Bat Kohen. So that's Rava is saying that's the case of that's the case of what's it called of the 9-year-old boy in our Mishnah. When it says 9 years old, he's posel. It's talking about this, that and not any case of yibum. So the Gemara says, "V'amidiktani seifa im enan reuyin lavo b'Yisrael hare elu poslim." It says in the seifa that if they're not ra'ui to marry into Yisrael at all, they're posel. So that's in the next Mishnah. The next Mishnah talks about having bia with people who are not ra'ui to enter the kahal. So mechlal deresh alav b'sulim askina. It sounds like in this Mishnah we're not talking about cases where people are pasul, because we mentioned that in the next Mishnah. So the Gemara says reisha pesule kahal sef pesule kehuna. The Gemara says you have to look, you have to read the fine print. You have to look very closely. You have to analyze well. The next Mishnah is talking about a different group of people. It's talking about people who are pesulim to come in the kahal at all. They cannot marry any Yisrael. But over here, we're talking about pesulei kehuna, people who cannot marry kehuna. Included in that is a halal, right? There are more pesulei kehuna than there are pesulei kahal. So they're really talking about different groupings. Okay, let's go a little bit further. This is really introduction to the next piece, but let's just read the Braita here, and then we'll.
So we're gonna have a minyan today or no?
Let's see. Let's read this Braita, and then we'll see. So Gufa, Ben Tet Shanim v'Yom Echad Ger Amoni uMoavi Mitzri v'Edomi Kuti Natin Halal uMamzer. All of those people who are pisulim, some of them are pisulim to come to the kahal at all, and the halal is pasul only to a kohen. So Shabau al Kohenet. So 9-year-old, one of these people that had bia with a kohenet, Leviya Yisraelit, pasla, and changes it to paslua. He makes her pasul. Rabbi Yossi Omer, kol shezaro pasul. Rabbi Yossi says a little bit of a different rule. He says anyone whose zera would be posel, they themselves would be, their zera would be pasul, they themselves would be posel. So we're going to see what the differences are. Some of the, like gerim, that their third generation is allowed. If their second generation, their zera won't be pasul, they may not be posel. Kol she'en zaro pasul eno posel. Anyone whose zera, whose lineage is not pasul, they themselves are not posel. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, kol she'ata noseh bito, ata noseh al menuto. He says a little bit differently. Anyone who you can marry his daughter, you can marry his almana. Anyone who cannot marry his daughter, you cannot marry his almana. Okay? That is the Braita. You know what? Maybe we'll stop here. We'll leave this Braita for tomorrow, because it really gets involved in the next. It's a whole sugya on its own. It's good to leave it all together. So B'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow we'll do Daf Samechet Amud Bet. We'll start from here.
We'll say this comment.